Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Chicks and Sticks, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. My name is Melissa Boyd, and I'm once again joined by my partners in crime, Kristy Flannery, Hannah Garfield, and Mariah Holland. How are you doing tonight, ladies?
I'm baffled. If we're gonna start there.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a couple seconds here. Hang on, Kristy. Hold that thought. So yes, before we get to last night's big event, the expansion draft in Seattle, just to remind you that if you're enjoying our show, make sure to drop us a like, a follow, or a comment from wherever you're watching or listening, and send us in your questions, and we'll be sure to answer them in a future episode. So yes, as Kristy referenced just before, so last night was the big unveiling of Seattle selections in the expansion draft. We've been waiting, it feels like several years for this for this night, for the Seattle Kraken to finally have their first players. And yeah, let's just say I think the overwhelming feeling is that it was slightly underwhelming, the reveal. So let's get into it a little bit and discuss a bit of what went down and some of the players that were chosen. And I actually wanted to start with a player that was not selected, but who sort of was had taken over the headlines since the protected lists were unveiled on Sunday, Carey Price. Mm-hmm. So that was the talk of the town heading into Wednesday night. And it turns out he did not get selected by the Kraken. So I wanted to ask you girls, do you think they made the right decision not selecting this star goaltender and his $10.5 million cap hit for the next 5 years? Kristy, we'll start with you since you seem to be chomping at the bit.
Every week. No, I think they made the right decision. I wouldn't have taken him. And I kind of hate to say it, but I wouldn't have.
Mariah, what do you?
Same thing. Like I love him. He's a great person, but not knowing like the medical stuff and all of that, I don't know if you want to risk that, especially at that big of a contract. Like, yeah, I think it's a good idea they passed.
3 for 3, Hannah.
I'm in the middle on this because I feel like if they had made some of the other big signings that were talked about, it would have made sense not to take Price. But given the fact that they still have so much cap space, I'm like, I would have, even if you only get Carey Price for a month of injuries, like I would take a month of Carey Price. Like he's one of the best goaltenders in the league. And they have the space since they didn't take any of the other big names.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, okay, I'm obviously biased. So of course in Montreal, it was a huge sigh of relief when the news came out, I think generally speaking. Although it was kind of fun to imagine what Marc Bergevin would do with the $10.5 million. But yes, I think generally we're pretty happy that he's still here. And I agree, I'm with Hannah. I think, because I thought that they would take on a few more bigger contracts, a few more sort of star players, and then it would just be too much for them to fit Carey under the cap. But now seeing the roster, I'm like, and even the 3 goalies that were selected, I mean, you could have done it for a marketing ploy, to just help, because I feel like a lot of the Seattle fans today are feeling a little let down by the picks made. So speaking of those picks, the first thing I want to ask you is, who do you feel like was the most surprising selection of the 30 players chosen? Mariah, we'll start with you this time.
Honestly, all of them. We were talking a little bit about this beforehand, and I'm kind of with Kristy on this. A lot of these players I didn't recognize. And I mean, a lot of them are really young, which when I was making my list, I was going for a lot younger players too, because seeing what the Wild have done with an older team, like seeing a brand new team with maybe younger players and seeing them develop into something, I wasn't super surprised. But looking at it, I don't think any player really sticks out to me a lot as a surprise that they picked. Just probably how many young ones they did. that would be my answer.
Yeah, it feels like they're going the long haul for the rebuild, or the building of the roster. They're taking the long road, it feels like. Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, I think Mariah made a really good point there. For me, the most surprising pick was Vanacek from Washington Capitals, just considering that they signed Dreiger from Florida, and that they also drafted the Joey Decord from the Senators. They don't, if you look at their roster, we were talking beforehand again, is that they don't have a lot of big names on forward. And Capitals had some bigger names available in Connor Cherry and Carl Hagelin. And, they're both Stanley Cup winners. You would think, if you're starting a new team, if you're not going to go for the big names, you would probably want, a couple recognizable faces from Cup wins. So kind of taking a goalie from the Capitals didn't make a ton of sense to me, but they're obviously in it for the long haul, like we were just saying.
They all even had quite a few good defensemen available too. I mean, I know the defense course is probably the strongest position for Seattle, but Brendan Dillon too would have been an interesting option. So I agree with you there, Kristy.
I had in my notes, can I say all the picks? Because I also could not pick one. The only thing that came to my mind is I said he must be taking a page out of Herb Brooks' book, where he's not looking for the best players, he's looking for the right players. I don't think he's necessarily done. I don't think this is going to be the roster that's going to be for the opening night, lineup. But yeah, I caught myself watching the second half because I missed the first half, and I had to Google who most of these players were because I just didn't know any of them, which I guess isn't a bad thing. But I guess I could say I was surprised with Chicago's pick.
Yeah.
Because I know John Quenneville from playing on New Jersey, so that was a little bit of a odd one for me. And as far as what Hannah said about them having the space to do it, I'm surprised with their pick from Philadelphia, because I also have no idea who that is.
Yeah, they obviously had their pick from Philly with Voracek or James Van Riemsdyk or so yeah, that was interesting. That one flew everyone was like, I'm sorry, who? So yeah, for me, I think it has to, and considering sort of the weakness it seems at center, even though he had shoulder surgery and will miss a good chunk of the season, I thought Max Domi was for sure going to be the pick from Columbus. I just, to me, it's sort of a no risk gamble. He's going to be a UFA anyway, and try him for half a year and see if there's a good fit there or not. But yeah, so but you're right about all the picks. It's a bit accurate too.
When you're starting a brand new team, I feel like it's weird that they didn't really get like a really recognizable name. Like Vegas had Marc-Andre Fleury. Like they had that face to kind of draw people in. And I think, people are still going to be fans of Seattle, obviously. Like people are excited about it, and they should be excited about it. But I felt like I still feel like they need that one or two more recognizable names or faces. Especially, Mark Giordano is obviously like a great player and has done a lot in Calgary, but I don't think he's as well known stateside, just because
I agree with that.
You don't see a lot of Calgary Flame games. So they needed somebody from an American team that was a recognizable face.
Or like an Austin Matthews or a Carey Price, like one of those.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm looking at the picture of all 6 players that were there. And I said, if you go on the street, you'd be lucky if a hockey fan can maybe name one of those faces on in that lineup. Although the jerseys are great. Yeah. That was the highlight of the expansion draft for me. I brought my apparel.
They are sweet. Yes. Very much so. But I agree. I thought, but again, this isn't the roster that they're going to have on opening night. I expect he'll probably make some more moves because he has too many players, really. He's got defensemen. He's got, now he has 29 players because he traded one today, Tyler Pitlick, but I mean, he's going to have to trade a few. So it'll be interesting to see. And with all that cap space, is he going to be able to lure one of the big free agent forwards to Seattle. I really liked his two UFA signings on defense with Jamie Alexiak and Adam Larsson. I think those were two really good gets. But I think, if he can get somebody up front, a name up front, I think that'll help a lot or help the cause a lot. Well, we said that all the picks are surprising, but which one to you was, I guess, the least surprising? We'll start with Heine this time.
Yanni Gourde. I mean, I feel like we kind of all knew that was going to be the Tampa pick, even though there was did you see the meme going around Twitter where it's like, oh, have you seen Tyler Johnson? And don't look at Yanni Gourde. But I mean, who wouldn't want a guy like him? He was, I mean, we were talking before the show. He was one of the standout players from the most recent cup runs, and you want that momentum bringing into your new team.
For sure. I agree there. Mariah, who was your?
I mean, since I saw a lot of them leaked earlier.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's a whole side thing that I wasn't really upset about it because it's like everyone pointed out, they're doing their jobs. So
yeah.
I guess probably Giordano, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he is one of the veterans that they had and probably gonna end up being the captain. So I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't super surprising compared to the rest of the lineup, I guess.
Yep, that's my pick as well. That's kind of like in basketball we say that's a layup. That was a layup pick there. Kristy, how about you?
I actually agree with both of those. I'm going to say Giordano though, just because for Tampa, I think there are a handful of people that are shocked they didn't pick Killorn.
Yeah.
Whereas I think for Calgary, again, I probably couldn't even name another player that was unprotected. So I would say that Giordano wasn't that, it wasn't that big of a surprise,
Yeah, agreed. And I think even, I think you could have even made an argument to select Andre Palat too from the Lightning, but there
were a lot of options.
There were a lot of options there.
What happens when you have such a good team?
Yeah, it's like, wow, geez, you could make a team just with Tampa's selections. For sure. So I wanted to sort of divide the team up: forwards, defense, goalies, what you thought of their haul for each position. So we'll start with the goalies. Kristy, we'll start with you this time.
So I'll keep this short. I like Drager, so that was my pick. The other two I'm not really as keen on. And I was talking to some people who actually made a good point. They were like, Ben Bishop healthy is probably the best goalie that was available. And that wasn't even an option for them. So I'm a little surprised that Bishop wasn't in the conversation. I think that, he was kind of overlooked because he has those kind of injuries. So yeah, the goaltending I'm okay with, but I'm kind of baffled by a little bit just because there were so many options.
Yeah. Agreed. Mariah, what did you think of the goalie picks?
Same as Kristy. I mean, honestly, like going through the list, I had Bishop picked for Dallas. That would be who Seattle took. And I was really crossing my fingers hoping they wouldn't take Kraken, and I'm so glad they didn't, selfishly. But I don't know. I mean, goaltenders sometimes, unless they're like a Fleury or a Price, it's so hard to predict how they'll play. And especially on a new team with new faces. So I don't know. They could prove to be one of the best in the league. I mean, not to say I highly doubt it, but we never know. So I'm kind of on the wait and see what happens standpoint.
Yeah, the sample size is small for Dreger and Vanacek. Like they had good years last year, but will they be able to, keep it up and carry the team? We'll see. Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said before, where this could have been a much better goaltending core, but also given what they have for their defensive, like their blue line, like you don't need a big goaltender because they put a lot of effort into building that defensive line that, they could also, a good defense can make a okay goalie look exceptional. So I feel like, that could really play a part with this goalie group.
Yep, agreed. Well, speaking of goalies, defense, I think we can all agree that is the strength of the team right now and where they put the most attention. But Mariah, what did you think of the defense they assembled?
I think it's going to be good going forward. I'm actually really excited to see. I'm hoping they're going to pair Susie with Alexiak. That's how I say it. Because they're both, like they were saying on the show last night, they're both huge players. And it's like, not that I'm all for hitting or anything like that. I mean, good timing is everything with that. But I'm excited to see if they're going to pair them together and how that'll work. Because Susie in Minnesota was a pretty decent defense. He was still a little bit younger, so it was hard to really gauge that. But just seeing Alexiak's size, and like they said on the show, he's the heaviest player in the NHL.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting seeing that, because it's just like going to be a wall in front of their goalie if they put the two of them together.
Hannah, what did you think of the back end?
I think no contest. This is the strongest group of, kind of strongest part of their team right now. I do think the best part of that is that they do have Hayden and Cale Fleury. Like, wouldn't that just be so funny if just for one game they put them both out there on a pair? And Hayden Fleury is actually really, I feel like he's really underratedly good, because he didn't get a ton of opportunities in Carolina, but in his small sample size in Anaheim, like he had a really good second half of the season out there after the trade line. But I think, they have a really good mix of some established talented defensemen and Giordano and Adam Larson, and they also have some really young, exciting guys in the Flurries and Dunn. Like, I think this could be a top 10 defense in the league.
Yeah, I think I feel like Ron Francis is going to be getting a lot of calls from his colleagues about his D and trades in the coming days. So we'll see. Kristy, what do you think of the D?
I mean, pretty much everything that's been said. I mean, they went for size, they went for strength, and that's never a bad thing when you're looking at the blue line. I'm happy they picked Adam Larson. I'm happy he gets kind of like a fresh start a little bit. And potentially be the top pairing. But I think with that being said, they have a really good defensive core, but I don't think any of them have been really like tested in their own right. Like, these aren't players that we're going against, like the Sidney Crosbys and the McDavids. I mean, I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like that it's those kinds of defensemen. So I think they're going to be strongly tested, especially with a in-division rival of the Vegas Golden Knights to go against like that first line. So I'm curious to see how they can kind of hold up, but I'm happy with that's good. I'm happy with that.
And last but not least, the forward group, which I think we all agree is probably the least kind of, I guess I could say the word to use would be a bit disappointing. So Hannah, break it down for us, the top 12 or so forwards.
I feel like, so they have some decent, there's no center depth. Like, if you look at this list, there's no really big notable names in center, which, as we've seen with a lot of teams, like if you're not strong down the middle, that's going to cause issues. So, they have some decent wings, and Morgan Geekie doesn't have a big sample size, but he has shown some really good flashes of potential. Jared McCann has potential. I have a little graphic pulled up of all the picks to like look at, but they have some potential, but you don't have a lot of established. And I think the big thing with the forwards is that, given the names that were available, and I think we keep coming back to this, is that they could have had Vladimir Tarasenko, they could have had Max Domi, they could have had James Van Riemsdyk, they could have had Jacob Voracek. Like, they could have had a bigger name on offense, and they didn't. And this could turn into a really good group of forwards. Like, you know, it's a lot of untested, unproven talent. Like they could turn out to be a William Karlsson, just like waiting in the wings for the opportunity. So, but, you know, in first glances and looking at this list, it's a very underwhelming forward group, I would say.
Yeah, agreed. Kristy, what did you think?
It really baffled me. It's one of those things where you look at it, and obviously we're not the GM, so there's somebody smarter than all of us, but I'm like, look what you could have had. Like, you could have had this, and now we have this. Like, where are we going with, like, what's the end game here? Yeah, I agree. There's really not that many centermen. I know I read something on Twitter that I guess Poyle was trying to get Seattle to bite on Johansson, who would have been probably the top center, but he wasn't biting on that contract, and you can't really blame him there. But again, these are, you know, we're assuming that Yanni Gourde's going to be the number one center. Again, he was a depth player for Tampa. He didn't take the faceoffs like regularly against those Sidney Crosby types and everything. So it kind of goes back to like, this is a really untested roster going up against the league's the great players of the league. So everything for them, it's kind of, everything's a question mark right now, because you really don't know these players and you don't really know what they're capable of, because it easily could be a William Karlsson where just give them the moment and then they can take it.
Yeah. Mariah, you wrap us up on this topic.
Same thing as what they said. I am interested to see how Eberle does.
Yeah.
Because he was with Edmonton for a while, right? I forget where he was just picked from.
Yeah, with Edmonton.
Islanders.
Yeah.
And then Islanders, yeah.
And I mean, I remember his name being brought up a lot. And I mean, he's not a center, but at least he's
a name
that, I mean, fans will hopefully recognize besides Giordano. But like you guys said, the names they could have had, like I thought they would have tried to get like a big name, right wing, left wing, center, just so they have some kind of scoring depth too. Like, wasn't even Landeskog up for?
He's a UFA.
Yeah, okay. They talked to him during their their exclusive period there, but nothing yet. So yeah, no deal reached from him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I don't think that, obviously I don't think they're done yet. I think there's going to be more going down, but I don't know. I'm interested to see where it goes.
The good news is that if you're a female, did you see Dreiger in his jersey last night? I said, there's something that we can root for. Doesn't matter if he's good in net. I said, that I can root for. So there was one positive if you were a female Seattle fan last night. Well, I have the article I have up, his pictures, like just staring at me. I was like, I have to bring this up.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point.
If we're going for positives, that is high on the list.
There's your negative column, your positive column. That can be your number one positive.
And then in the middle, you have Dreiger in a Seattle jersey.
Yeah, it'll be. Sorry, go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I do think it's very telling that we all seem to be in agreement on every point in this. Like, I think it says a lot about, what they've constructed, and that it's a very conservative, very, safe but unknown roster.
Well, and I'm shocked that there were no trades, no side deals to attempt to acquire more assets, like more picks, more prospects. I'm shocked, like couldn't believe it, because I was basically, that's why I tuned in last night more or less, and I wanted to see the show obviously too, but I was like, I was waiting for the trades to come, and there were no trades, and I thought
there was nothing.
Like, that's weird. Like, oh, so Columbus didn't like dissuade you to not to take, Max Domi. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity, and from the sounds of it sounds like his asking price was way too high to do that. So I feel like it's a missed opportunity, and he kind of shot himself in the foot with that. So really sort of, and
Would you
much
say
anticipated and just kind of fizzed out a little bit.
Yeah. Would you say that the leaks, one, do you think the leaks made a difference in like knowing ahead of time and like not tuning in?
I don't think so. I know a few people like that I saw that were making a big fuss about it, but it's like, you're making a fuss about it on Twitter. So it's like, go outside if you don't want to know.
Exactly. Just go off Twitter for the day.
It was like, you're being a bit hypocritical with that. But I mean, next time, let's not have the picks due at 10 a.m. and then have the show at 8 p.m. to give people a 10-hour
window,
leeway. Like, of course, the picks are going to be known because the players need to be informed, the agents need to be informed, the teams need to be informed. That's where all of the insiders' contacts are, like within those people. So it was normal, and kudos to Steve Yzerman who who kept his player secret the longest. So I think he should get credit for that. We were just waiting for him by 3:00.
I was shocked that Luke couldn't keep it under wraps.
I know.
That was the biggest surprise. Probably the biggest surprise of the whole expansion draft.
Yeah, I know, but I guess because they had to bring Al Burley over there, that's how it came out. But I agree. Yeah, it's funny. We are all in agreement. I think the hockey world in general is in agreement. Fans are in general agreement that was slightly underwhelming. So we'll see what they do this weekend at the draft. They do have the number 2 pick tomorrow night, Friday night, sorry. And so we'll see what they do and heading into free agency, because I don't think they're done, but he has some work to do. Let's just say.
Although he literally would be like a 1980 like redo if this is a winning roster.
It's true. And
I'm like, he's smarter than everybody.
It's true. And you have to remember too, analytics is a big part of his front office. They have a big analytics team. So I feel like a lot of these picks were based a lot on analytics. So it'll be interesting to see. As you said, Kristy, it's maybe not the best players, but the right players. We'll see if that holds true. So I wanted to end the show today with 2 trades that happened on today, so Thursday, as after the trade freeze lifted at 1 p.m. There were 2 pretty significant trades. There were a couple of other signings, but the 2 significant trades that came down were 2 trades that weren't really anticipated. So the first one was Detroit acquiring goaltender Alex Nedelkovic, Calder Trophy finalist, from the Hurricanes in exchange for Jonathan Bernier, who is a pending UFA, so his rights basically, and a 3rd-round pick. So everyone was a little bit taken aback by this trade. One, because why would Carolina be trading their Calder Trophy finalist? And B, that they weren't able to get a better return out of Steve Yzerman. So your initial thoughts on the deal, Kristy, we'll start with you.
Don't make a trade with Steve.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, it was financially, if it had to be done, it had to be done. So that's here nor there. Sometimes it's just a business decision. I was more shocked than you really couldn't get more for him. Mm-hmm. That was where the big question mark was for me.
Yeah, agreed. Mariah, what do you think?
I was pretty shocked as well. I didn't expect him to go anywhere. I was kind of figuring Carolina would have held on to him, but we kind of talked before with Dean too, that they weren't really able to put that much money into him right now, and Detroit was. So, good on Detroit for going for that. I think it'll work out well for them, but like we said, I don't know how Carolina's going to do, but I think they had a pretty depth team already. I didn't really see a lot of what they had, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens on the other side.
Right.
Hannah, what about you?
I think there's a good point to be made about, I definitely think they could have gotten much more on a return. But for me, given Carolina's struggle at the goaltending position for the last several years, if you're going to get rid of somebody to make room for cap, or if you had cap concerns, I would have thought they would have, maybe gotten rid of somebody else and then signed Ned to like a 2 or 3 year deal to kind of, not commit super long term to him, but still, kind of keep him there, just because it was, they had a goaltender who was a Calder Cup finalist, and for years, look at they haven't really had much stability in net. I mean, Mrazek's been good when he's been healthy, but they had Scott Darling, that didn't work out. They had they also have James Reimer, who is on the older end. Like, they have older goaltenders or injury prone goaltenders. I would have thought they would have been a little bit more willing to commit and stick with a younger goaltender. But I get it, cap, we're in a flat cap right now, and it makes sense that they needed to make space and they couldn't commit the money. But I would have thought they would have kept more in a goaltender given their recent history.
Yeah. Well, and I saw a mention today that this is sort of going to be a trend across the league. They think these sort of players that need to be, these restricted free agents that need to be qualified, and that there's going to be a lot of restricted free agents who are not qualified, and then therefore are going to become unrestricted free agents, so then available to all the teams. So it feels like this was the first example of that. So we'll see what other ones, but apparently there are other ones, like players you would be really surprised, like why would they let them go for nothing? And but yeah, it just goes to show you that, yes, hopefully we are getting out of this pandemic, but the cap crunch is serious right now for so many teams, and there's not a lot of money going around. And that actually brings me, it's a good segue into our second trade that happened today. In Gostisbehere, who has seems like been in trade rumors for 2 seasons, poor guy, finally got moved today. Defenseman from the Philadelphia Flyers was traded to the Arizona Coyotes. Basically, Philadelphia paid Arizona to take him, more or less. The 2 years left on his contract at $4.5 million cap hit. So it was Gostisbehere went to Arizona, and for doing that and for taking the whole salary cap, the Coyotes got a 2nd round pick and a 7th round pick. So again, helping their draft stock, because they need to stock up on picks. They didn't have many. So again, we were talking about tight cap. This is an example right here. Philadelphia needed the cap space badly and made this move. So we'll start with Mariah. What did you think of this trade?
I'm not 100%. I'll be completely honest. I didn't follow this player a whole lot, just because especially this last season, the Wild didn't see any Eastern teams. So I'd heard his name, but I wasn't super familiar. I guess I was a little surprised that he went to Arizona. I thought maybe a bigger team. Nothing against Arizona in that regard, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at Phil Kessel, though. I mean, everyone kind of made fun of him, but he still does pretty well there. So it could be like his area to shine, too, where he can, because you said he'd been in trade rumors for the last 2 seasons. So maybe it can finally be a team he can succeed and show everybody up with.
Yeah, for sure. Hannah, what did you think?
I mean, I'm glad he finally got traded. Like, poor guy, like constantly, you're constantly hearing that your team's shopping you around. I mean, that's gotta suck. So I'm glad that he ended up someplace else. Arizona's a little bit weird to me, because I feel like they're trying to shed some contracts.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe this just means that Oliver Ekman-Larsson is definitely on the way out, because why would you kind of take on one bigger defense contract while you're still trying to get rid of another? But I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson has longer term, and Gostisbehere only has 2 years left. So, it's going to be a lot for those 2 years, but then it's done. And I don't think anyone sees Arizona being a real contender in the next 2 years. So it makes sense why they would take his contract. But I really feel like this means that Oliver Ekman-Larsson's on the way out.
Very good point. Yes, he's also, speaking of defensemen in trade rumors, he is also he's also at the top of the list this offseason. So we'll see what happens there. Kristy, you get the last word on. Kristy, you get the last word on this one.
I'm just happy he has a change of scenery. I feel like there's a lot of players that need that change of scenery that didn't get it, like Adam Henrique should have went to Seattle, but that's a whole different story. So I'm happy that he's getting the change of scenery. Again, it's the return. I don't know if there's a trend that to get rid of these contracts, like teams are just going to start taking hits. I don't know, but I'm just happy that he finally landed somewhere, because that has to, you can push it off as much as you want, but it has to really, like Hannah said, it has to suck to just know that the team's desperately trying to get rid of you. And then because wasn't he on waivers at one point?
He was, yeah.
And then you weren't even claimed.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where I'm glad that he's getting the fresh start that he probably needed for at least a season, if not two.
Agreed. And I think this isn't the last trade like this that we're going to see either this offseason. The Coyotes had made another similar trade a few days ago, actually, acquiring Andrew Ladd from the Islanders. Andrew Ladd's contract. So it's a second move like this from the Coyotes, and I don't think it's going to be the last, because there are so many teams desperate to shed caps. So it'll be interesting to see.
I feel like Arizona is always the team where contracts go to die. Like, I feel like they're every couple of years they're taking all these like contracts for like players that aren't even, like, they had Marian Hossa's contract at one point. Like, I feel like they are the contract graveyard of the NHL.
Actually, Marian Hossa's contract just finished this past season, because when I was on Cap Friendly today looking at Arizona's roster, I was like, wow, he was still on their books up until the end of this season. Crazy to think.
So the cycle's resetting itself. You get rid of one,
they have to acquire some new ones, because they were but it's also interesting, like you said it, I think, Hannah, too, that they're basically telling other teams, like, we're open for business, like, you can have basically whoever you want other than Jacob Chychrun, their star young defenseman. So basically they're saying, like, everyone's available. So it's interesting that they're bringing in these two like contracts. Obviously it's for draft choices, which they don't have a lot of, but still it's a funny sort of juxtaposition.
Yeah. It's funny that they're doing it again. Like, I feel like we just got out of this, and like, how much longer before Chychrun wants out? Like, they're your guy. Like, they keep getting they keep accumulating draft picks, and then they do nothing with them.
I mean, they did give the Devils Kevin Ball, so that was one that could work out for us down the line. And we can't forget that Philadelphia now has Ryan Ellis, which as a Devils fan, my God, I was like, when there was a rumor that Tarasenko was also going to Philadelphia, I said, as a Devils fan, they can't. They can't. The Devils are already going to be bad. We can't have the All-Stars coming to the Metro Division. That just can't happen.
Well, and I wonder too now I think Philly has quite a few RFAs to sign, and they still don't have a ton of cap space, but I wonder if they take a run at somebody like Seth Jones. Like, we know that they were, they were up until a couple of days ago, the front runners to acquire Seth Jones. So I wonder if they'd still try that route too.
Yeah, let's reunite him and Ellis. Yeah, just come on together. It'll be great.
Exactly. Like, let's just remake our entire defense corps in one.
Yeah, Matthias Ekholm, come on down.
Yeah.
Bring back the 2014 Nashville Predator D-Corps.
Right. Well, doesn't Carolina have the 2014 Toronto Maple Leaf goalie tandem now?
They do now. Yeah.
So making a comeback.
2021 is here to replicate 2014.
Or 2012 if you're Lou Lamoriello with the New York Islanders.
There you go.
Lou, who's trying to reunite, Zach Parise and Ryan Suter online, because apparently those two only come in,
I will die if they get signed to another identical contract. Like, I will literally die if it's like, oh, they're coming to the island.
But can you say best friend goals?
Right?
Hannah's gonna say they can't do math.
Oh man,
I wish
Zach and Travis were close.
I wish me and my best friend signed identical $100 million contracts.
Yeah, I don't know. Where do we sign up for that? I don't. Well, that was a good way to end the show, actually, for this week. I like when we end on a fun note like that. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week, but be sure to be tune in next week, because we are going to have tons of news for you, because this week promises to be insane in the NHL. Starting Friday night and Saturday is the NHL entry draft, where we find out who our team's next prospects, new crop of prospects will be. Very exciting. And it's always an active time too for trades and things like that. So because, all the GMs are kind of brought together, so it creates a lot of discussion. So it should be a lot of fun, and make sure that you're following the Hockey Writers, because we have an incredible team covering the draft and have been working on the draft for months now. Our draft guide is extensive, and it has everything you need to get yourself ready for Friday night and Saturday. So make sure to check that out, and we'll be having wall-to-wall coverage all weekend. And of course, next week, as well as start of free agency the 28th. So that's always a fun day to circle on your calendar. Again, we'll have full coverage, so make sure you're following thehockeywriters.com, checking out all our articles, checking us out on social media. And last but not least, I know I do this every week, this plug every week, but make sure to sign up for the Morning Skate newsletter at morningskate.io, because it's awesome.
It's a good one.
You won't, and as a result of receiving it in your inbox, you're not going to miss a thing of all the crazy news that's going to happen over the next few days. So please, I'm doing you a favor by to subscribe. So that's it for us tonight. Thank you, Kristy, Mariah, and Hannah, for joining me as always, and we'll see you next week.